I hope you all enjoyed your recess. We're continuing our American history unit with the Great Depression. Alright, I actually know a lot about— Oh boy, can I teach this class too?
No!
I really don't care, Osaka, come on up.
My father will hear about this when he gets back from that party.
The Great Depression is considered the worst economic crisis in American history. It's kinda like how Hulk Hogan died the same day we learned Miss Sakaki stuffs her bra. I knew it! It all began with the crash in 1929, which was
caused by excessive borrowing of money to purchase stocks. A total free market failure, Osaka!
I'm sorry, is Carl Darks in this class? Let me finish, Cheeto-chan. Before the crash, people borrowed money to buy stocks all the time and had absolutely no problems. In fact, the margin requirements actually rose in 1928, meaning you couldn't borrow as much money to buy stocks as they could before. But there was no crash then. The actual cause was that the Federal Reserve kept interest rates artificially low, which led to malinvestment into stocks instead of productive sectors. The Federal Reserve then rapidly raised interest rates, making investors sell their stocks all at once. That's what actually caused the crash.
Well, that doesn't matter. Even if government policy was the cause, it was the radical free market reforms of Herbert Hoover that really let the Depression foster.
You really are dumber than a donkey with a gender studies degree. FDR actually disagrees with you. When he was running for president, he said Hoover taxed too much, was spending too much money, and gave too much welfare to nigs. Hey. Herbert Hoover was actually so interventionist, he put tariffs on everything from corn to wool, cutting America off from global trade. Now that foreigners were unable to sell their goods here, they didn't have the money to buy stuff for here either, and that made the country poorer. I don't see how any of this is relevant to the New Deal, the policies that got America through the Depression. Thank you, El Fatso, for throwing in your 2 cents. Thought you want to keep those for the vending machine. The New Deal was actually disastrous. One of the worst aspects being the NRA. The NRA? I love the NRA! You what? The sons and daughters of Confederate veterans will kill you, Tomo! The National Rifle Association was started by Unionists to make sure they could crush another Southern Revolution. Not that it matters, because I'm talking about the National Recovery Administration. The NRA created a massive government bureaucracy that forced businesses into state-run cartels, that artificially raised wages, fixed prices, and shortened working hours. This lowered productivity and raised the cost of business by an average of 40%. Thanks to the NRA, a tailor named Jack McGidd was arrested by the Yankee regime for pressing a suit for 35 cents when FDR had fixed the price at 40 cents. Yep, FDR punished businessmen for charging too little. Some savior. Another awful aspect of the New Deal was passing the Agricultural Adjustment Act. This act resulted in the destruction of valuable crops and the slaughter of perfectly healthy cattle. He wanted poor people to pay more!
Okay, so the New Deal wasn't perfect.
And another thing, FDR prevented workers from finding real jobs by forming make-work programs where unemployed people were paid to do unproductive labor, some of them being paid by the government to collect donations for the Democratic Party. All of Roosevelt's New Deal tinkering actually prolonged the Depression by about 7 years, according to many economists. What about the Wagner Act? It gave us workers' rights. Without the Wagner Act, we wouldn't have strong unions that cause wages to rise and represent the interests of workers. Now that's a false nuke if I've ever seen one. The Wagner Act made unions grossly overpowered and forced workers to join the union instead of being able to represent themselves. Unions would then make increasingly outrageous demands, like pushing wages above the market rate, which created more unemployment and harmed productivity, which is exactly what you want to avoid during a depression. Wagner Act was then cut back by Truman and contributed to the post-war boom. The Wagner Act was more about workers' wrongs than it was about workers' rights, just like feminism. Wow, Osaka, I'm still mad that you insulted me, but you really know a lot about the New Deal. Darn tootin' I do. What do you think the main takeaway of all this should be?
Too brute.
The main message is that the FDR administration and the New Deal was a total socialist failure, beloved by idiots, and that the Depression was caused by government action, especially those of the Federal Reserve. Central banking is what we should truly be opposing, and it's slowly destroying our country and enslaving mankind. Central banking. Interesting. Aren't most central bankers Jew?
That's enough! Conversation over!